Bava Batra Daf Kuf denying reality matna ma shekatov b'Torah, where we're going to see through understanding our piece of Gemara, both through the eyes of the Rashbam and more importantly for us through the eyes of the Rambam, we'll understand how Torah is so much more than a set of imperatives that we're meant to follow. It's not just a set of laws. We've got to view Torah as natural laws, the laws by which the universe is created. It's the way the cosmic universe is wired and how we're meant to engage with it. The Torah is a chesed, it's a total kindness to humankind that we've been given this blueprint to understand how it all works and therefore how we need to relate to it. It's always interesting to me that the way the imperatives are worded in the Torah are not even as imperatives, they're as statements of fact. It doesn't say al tirtzach or asur lirtzoach, it's forbidden to murder, or do not murder, although that's how the English translates it. Lo tirtzach means you won't. Lo tirtzach, you're not going to murder. That's not how the world works. You don't do that. Lo tignov, and so with the mitzvahs asay as well. It doesn't say daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta lehem sheya'asu tzitzit or shechayavim hem la'asot tzitzit. It says v'asu lehem tzitzit. They're going to make tzitzit because that's how the world works. Once you understand how the world works, you're going to do it. It would be like saying, explain to them that there's a wall there and tell them they're not allowed to walk into the wall. Once you know there's a wall there, you're not going to walk into the wall. The Torah simply shows you what's there. As we discussed in the Medrash here on Shabbos morning, the difference between being in darkness and being in light. Just the ability to see what's there. Once you know what's there, then the rest becomes natural. And we'll understand that from the way we learn this Mishnah and Gemara with the Rashbam, the Rambam, and an insight of the Briskerov. And we're dealing with this principle of matna ma shekatov b'Torah. What happens if somebody does a deal or makes a condition which goes against the laws of the Torah? How valid is that condition? And we learned that just over 2 years ago in Ksubis Daf Nun Vova Beis. We also had a Matmonim shir on this very topic, and we'll use a principle that we developed then to understand the Gemara here as well. The case here is where a man says, B'ni b'chor lo yitol pi shnayim. Although the Torah says the firstborn gets 2 portions of an inheritance, I'm not doing that with my son, they're all going to get the same amount. Ish ploni b'ni lo yirash yemechav. Or among my sons, I'm disinheriting this particular son. Lo amar klum. He hasn't said anything. It's irrelevant. Why? Shitna ma shekatov b'Torah. Because he has made a condition which is against the laws of the Torah. The Torah says the sons inherit. The Torah says the Bechor gets Pishnayim. Who are you to say it's not going to be? However, if before he dies, he's busy dividing up his estate, he gives one more and one less, and he doesn't give the Bechor double, it's hours before he dies. Dvarav kayamin, his words are valid. As long as he doesn't use the word inheritance. If he says, and as the Rashbam explains, if he's giving gifts before he dies, then when he dies, there's nothing to inherit. So the laws of inheritance don't kick in. He didn't undo the laws of inheritance. He just subverted the laws of inheritance by giving it away before he died. But if he uses the word Yerusha, then it doesn't work. The Gemara goes on to say, this clearly is not like Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says, B'davar shel mamon tzna'o kayam. In monetary matters, you can make whatever conditions you want. And surely inheritance is a monetary matter. So since we see that in inheritance, that even though it's a monetary matter, you can't make a condition against the Torah, that seems to go against Rabbi Yehuda. Titania, etc., and he brings a proof that answers the Gemara, no. Afilu temer Rabbi Yehuda, hatam yadav kamachla. In other cases that Rabbi Yehuda is talking about, particular place of kiddushin, where he says, I'm marrying you, but I'm not taking on the obligations of a husband, she agrees to the deal. Hakalo kamachel, here the Bechor doesn't agree not to get to double portion. The other sons don't agree to be disinherited. So mechila is what is missing, that foregoing, that agreeing to the terms. So if somebody agrees to monetary terms, even if they're against the Torah, it would seem, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it might work. But if there's nobody to agree, then it doesn't work. So according to the Rashbam, this is all about the laws of inheritance are monetary laws. Monetary laws are not governed by the Torah, so to say. One can make whatever deal you want to make. As long as it's not an unethical deal, you can make whatever conditions. But if it's clearly against the Torah, then it doesn't work. If there's no mechila, there's no forgoing. But the way the Rambam learns this is a little bit different, and the wording of the Rambam will reveal to us what the principle is here, because there's something very odd. When I was learning this Mishnah, I'm thinking to myself, but what does the Torah want? Clearly the Torah is saying to us, God's will is that the sons inherit and that a Bechor gets double. And if I make a condition in my will that is not the case, the will is not valid. But if I give it all away 2 minutes before, then it's valid. Or if I write my will in a way that some people write it to say, what I'm putting here in my will is not an inheritance, it's a gift that should take effect 10 minutes before I die, retrospectively. So that after I've died, there is no estate. But what have I just done? I've just found a way to get around what the Torah's desire is. The Torah wants certain things to play out, and I found a way. So because I didn't use the word Yerusha, does that really make the difference? When we know clearly the Torah has told us how it's meant to go, and we learned at the beginning of Yesh Nochlin the idea of Nachal, that it naturally goes to the son like a river flows. It just the legacy continues from father to son, and he's interrupting that continuation against the Torah, and simply because he uses a different formula, it works. Why would that be so? So if we look at the words of the Rambam in the beginning of the 6th parak in Nachlot, Ein Adam Yachol Lorish Lemi She'eino Ra'ui Leyorsho V'lo La'akora Yerusha Min HaYoresh Af Al Pi Shezeh Mamonu. Even though we're dealing with monetary laws, we're dealing with inheritance, this is different. In the case of Yerusha, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that in monetary laws you can overrule the Torah if the parties agree, not in inheritance. So the Rashbam gave us the reason, because we don't have mechila here. We don't have anybody who's saying, I forgo it, it's okay, I accept it. We don't have that taking place. But the Rambam says something else. Lefi shene'amar befarshat nachalot, because in the section of nachalot in the Torah it says, V'haita livnei Yisrael lechukat mishpat. It says in the Torah the laws of inheritance are a chok, mishpat, a statute of mishpat. And we know chok means, it comes from the word chakak. It's carved into reality. It's not something you can manipulate. It's not something you can work around. It's not something you can reason with. It's like a natural law. That's what chok is. It's carved into reality. And inheritance, although it seems to be monetary laws, you're dealing with estates, it's considered a chok mishpat lomar shechuka zu lo tishtaneh. There's nothing you can do to change this chok, no matter what the agreements are. So different to the Rashbam, he's saying mechila doesn't work here. You can't forgo a chok. You can't say, you know what, I know there's a law of gravity, which means if you jump off the building, you're going to fall to the ground. I forgo that law. What do you mean you forgo that law? I'm jumping and I forgo the law of gravity. It's not yours to forgo. That's what a chok is. A chok is not yours to reason with. It's not yours to forgo. It's not yours to explain away. It's a natural law. And inheritance is a chok. It's a natural law, which explains, according to those who say that it applies even by non-Jews, certainly that the son inherits the father. The Rambam holds that's midoraisa. Even for a non-Jew, the son has a right to inherit the father. It's a natural law. And that's why a condition doesn't work with it. What we're saying here is something really interesting. So if a man comes along and he says, I don't want my son to inherit me, I'm leaving my estate to somebody different, to somebody else. And that person will inherit from me. It's like a person saying, I'm going to drop this Ming vase, as we've talked about before, and I don't accept that it's going to fall and break. I decree differently. You're dealing with a law of nature. This is not something you can negotiate away. It's nonsense. It's absurd. We won't get into a discussion with him. If a person says to you, I will sell you my property on the condition that when I drop this Ming vase, it doesn't break. Well, that's just nonsense. Your words are absurd. They don't mean anything. We just simply delete your words. That's what's na'or batel. Lo amar klum, as the Mishnah says, he hasn't said anything. It's not just that it's an invalid statement. He hasn't said anything. It's nonsense. You can't use the word Yerusha for somebody who's not a Yoresh. if you don't use the word Yerusha, it's not nonsense. It's true you're going against the way the Torah would like to see it. That's a different issue. Whether it's the right thing to do or it isn't the right thing to do, the Gemara discusses. But it's not nonsense. If you use the word Yerusha and you say, I want my maid to be Yoreshet, to inherit my estate, not my son, there's no such thing. Maids don't inherit. You can give a gift to a maid, but she can't inherit. She's not a Yoreshet. And that's the problem. This is a chok, and you can't mess with it. Now, we used a similar idea back in Ksubas, Daf Nun Vov, to explain a question that we had on the Rambam, where the Rambam said there in Hilchot Ishut, there are 4 conditions with conditions. A condition has to fulfill 4 requirements. It's got to be a T'nai Kaful, it's got to be double, and the Hein must come before the love. We learned all of these conditions. Vishiach T'nai Kodim L'Maisa, number 4, Shiyeh HaT'nai Davar She'efshar L'Kaimo. The condition must be something that's feasible to do. And we ask, why doesn't the Rambam list the 5th one? It's got to be a T'nai that's not against the Torah. That's one of the conditions, and the Rambam doesn't have it there. And we used the Tosfos Yeshonim, the Rabbeinu Tam, to answer, and the Rabbeinu Tam says, because if you make a t'nai against the Torah, it's maflig bidvarim ve'en ze t'nai klal shi'itkayem at'nai v'havi kemo al manat sheta'ali l'rakia. Making a condition against the Torah is like making a condition against gravity. You are my wife on condition that you can fly up to the clouds without an airplane, just by yourself. Flap your arms, and if you can fly up to the clouds, you're my wife. That isn't going to work. It's batel, it's nonsense. And in the same way, to make a t'nai against the Torah is nonsense. It's absurd. The Brisker Rov uses it. The Brisker Rov is just amazing. We know that Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, the Brisker Rov's father, innovated a whole system of learning that we use till this day, we use all the time. And his son, the Brisker Rov, innovated a further innovation in methodology. So the Brisker Rov's greatness is not only in who he was, this incredibly great person, and the fact that he was a brilliant master of Torah, but that he also innovated a method of learning that also we use in the yeshivas all the time today. I never had the zchus of meeting him. He died in 1959. He was the grandson of the Beis Halevi and of the Netziv. And his father's Reb Chaim. My father always used to talk about the Soloveitchiks as the royal family of Torah. He used to say, kind of, the Lopians, he used to say, our family, he says, they're aristocratic, but the Soloveitchiks are royalty. That you can't come close. It's just a tradition that goes back forever of the greatest of people and minds. And I didn't have the chance to know him, but I was very close to his son, to Reb Meir Soloveitchik, who died only a few years ago. I didn't have a chance to learn with him in a shir, but for over 20 years, every time I came to Israel, almost every year, I would spend time with him and we would talk and learn things, and just an amazing connection and guidance that I had from him. And the Brisker Rov uses a similar idea here. The Rambam has an amazing concept. He says, Hager eino yoreshet aviv ha'akum ela midivrehem. A convert inherits from his father midrabanan. A goy, a non-Jew, inherits from his father as a Torah law. But if the non-Jew converts, he stops inheriting from his father because he's no longer related to his father. But the Rabbanan instituted a law that he does inherit from his father. Why? We don't want to discourage him from his conversion. His father's a multimillionaire, and he assumes he's going to inherit from his father, as he would have if he was a non-Jew. Now he becomes a Jew, and the Beis Din says, no, you don't get anything. Your brothers get everything, you get nothing. We're afraid he'll say, then cancel the conversion. Then I'm out of here. So the Chacham said, why should he lose? Because he's converting, the same law should apply. This is unusual for the Rambam to say. And I think, the Rambam usually states fact. Here he passes an opinion, a chidush. Shetnai mo'il b'Yerusha zu ho'il ve'en ha'akum b'chuyav la'amod b'tachanat chachamim. A non-Jew doesn't have to keep the laws of the chachamim. So if the father, who is a non-Jew, says, I don't want my son, the convert, to inherit, says the Rambam, that will work, because he's not bound by the laws of the rabbis. He's bound by the laws of the Torah. But for the laws of the Torah, the son doesn't inherit. It's the rabbis who said the son has to inherit. The son is a Jew. He's bound by the laws of the Torah, but not the father. The father's a non-Jew. So the father makes a condition. He's not matna al ma shekatuv b'Torah. And the Brisker Rov uses this idea, and he says that Yesod dino hu din bitul, the idea of this matna al ma shekatuv b'Torah is a concept of bitul. It's not that you're not allowed to make a condition against the Torah. It's if you make a condition against the Torah, it's batil, it's nonsense. It's as if the words were never uttered. Reality gets in the way of what you're saying. You can't say something against reality. What's magnificent that emerges in the Brisker Rov is reality is different for different people. As we discussed again on Shabbos morning in the Medrash, one person can be in darkness and one person can be in light. In the physical world, that doesn't work. The lights are either on or it's dark. And then it's dark for everybody or it's light for everybody. But in Torah, it can be that one person can see and one person standing right next to him cannot see. The same here, if there's a chiyuv, if there's a Torah obligation on one person and there isn't one on the other, then the reality applies to the one person but not to the other. So it's not reality in the sense of like gravity that applies to everybody. It's much more like a physician might say to one person, you can run a marathon. And he might say to another person, if you run the marathon, you're going to drop dead. Your heart can't do it. It's not possible. But what's the difference? Two human beings, same age. Why can one run and the other one can't run? Because everybody's different. And so it is in Torah as well. When there is a chiyuv, when there is a Torah obligation, that is reality. That applies to that individual as a matter of reality. If there isn't a Torah obligation, that reality doesn't apply. So there are two things we learn from this. We've got to look at the Torah as a blueprint of reality, which changes everything, the way you learn halakha, the way you keep halakha. All of this gives a completely new perspective. You're not learning do's and don'ts. You're learning how the world is wired, resulting from which it becomes obvious how you need to behave and engage. That's what halakha is. And in so doing, it's very specific. You might be a Kohen, and then the laws of Tumah are a reality that apply to you. If you're a Yisrael, that reality doesn't apply to you. It doesn't affect you. It's a real thing. Like you can have an infection that will affect one person, but will not infect another person. It's the same reality, but you've always got to look at it in association with the individual. How does this reality affect the individual, and how does the individual engage with the reality? But what's important to understand is that to make a t'nai against the Torah, as the Rabbi Tam says, to make a condition against the Torah is like making a condition against the laws of science, because the laws of Torah are like the laws of any other reality. This is not a set of laws, this is not a set of do's and don'ts, it's not even a set of morality. This is the science of how the cosmic world is wired and how consequently we need to engage with it.